Chapter 1: Paper Anniversary. Nolan Reeves stood at the threshold of his kitchen observing his wife, Vanessa, as she prepared dinner with practiced efficiency. 12 years of marriage had turned their routines into clockwork precision, but there was nothing mechanical about the way he still found himself admiring her. The grace with which she moved, the slight furrow of concentration between her brows as she chopped vegetables. "Need a hand?" he asked, rolling up his sleeves. Vanessa smiled without looking up. "I've got to cover it. How was your meeting with that potential client?" Nolan leaned against the counter. "Promising. The Westridge account could be our biggest yet." Nolan's architecture firm had started in their garage, with Vanessa supporting them through those lean early years with her corporate job at Meridian Global. They'd been 24 and full of dreams when they married. Both ambitious but united in building a life together. Now at 36, Nolan's firm was finally gaining traction. Though still nowhere near the prestige of Meridian, where Vanessa had risen to senior marketing director. "That's fantastic," she said. But there was a distracted quality to her voice that Nolan had been noticing more frequently. Later that night, as they prepared for bed, Nolan caught Vanessa checking her phone for the third time in 30 minutes. When she noticed his gaze, she quickly set it face down. "Work never stops," she explained with a tight smile. "Speaking of work," Nolan said, settling into bed beside her. "Do not forget I cleared my schedule for your company Gala next month. First time in 3 years I'll make it to one of these things." Something flashed across Vanessa's face. "Oh, about that. It might be better if you sit this one out. These events are just boring corporate politics. I thought we agreed I should make an appearance." Nolan replied, feeling a strange unease settle in his stomach. "You've mentioned how everyone brings their spouses. It's just," Vanessa sighed. "My new boss is really focused on keeping these events professional. Some of the executives have complained about previous years getting too casual." It was a reasonable explanation, but something in her delivery felt off. Nolan had built his career reading blueprints and spotting structural weaknesses. And for the first time, he felt like he was seeing hairline cracks in the foundation of his marriage. The next morning, Nolan left early for a site visit. As he backed out of the driveway, he noticed a sleek black Tesla slowing down near their house before accelerating away. He thought nothing of it until he spotted the same car 3 days later, parked 2 blocks from their home. That afternoon, he called Vanessa from his office. "Hey, I forgot some drawings at home. Are you still at work?" "Yes, quarterly planning meeting. Will not be home until late," she replied, her voice slightly hushed. In the background, he could hear the distinct ambient noise of a restaurant. That night, Nolan stared at their wedding photo on the mantel. Vanessa had been radiant in her simple white dress, clutching wildflowers. He'd been so proud, so certain they would defy the odds. His own parents had divorced when he was 12, his father walking out for a younger woman, leaving his mother to raise him alone while working 2 jobs. He promised himself his marriage would be different. Nolan opened his laptop and hesitated for a long moment before typing. "Signs your spouse is having an affair." Chapter 2: Proof Positive. Nolan was not proud of his next decisions. He installed a tracking app on Vanessa's phone while she showered. He noted her passwords when she entered them. He even drove past her office building one evening when she claimed to be working late, finding her parking spot empty. 2 weeks of surveillance yielded the patterns. 2-day lunches that extended too long. Friday work meetings that ended with her coming home smelling of unfamiliar colon. Text messages that she deleted immediately after reading. The man's name was Bryant Donovan, newly appointed Chief Strategy Officer at Meridian Global, transferred from their London office. 43 years old, divorced, no children, graduate of Wharton's Business School. His Tesla had become a regular sight in Nolan's discreet surveillance. Nolan found him on LinkedIn, studied his profile, his accomplishments, the professional headshot of a square-jawed man with confidence and salt and pepper hair. He was everything Nolan was not: corporate, polished, powerful within Vanessa's world in ways Nolan could never be with his more creative entrepreneurial career. One night, Nolan followed Vanessa to an upscale restaurant downtown. Through the window, he watched as Bryant greeted her with a kiss that was anything but professional. The sight hit him like a physical blow despite having suspected it for weeks. That same night, Vanessa returned home at 11:30, claimed she'd been networking with clients. Nolan pretended to believe her, kissed her goodnight, then went to the guest bathroom and vomited until his throat burned. The next morning, he drove to his office early and found himself staring at the building designs on his desk without seeing them. Perry Morales, his business partner and oldest friend since architecture school, found him there an hour later. You look like hell, Perry observed, setting a coffee on Nolan's desk. Everything okay? Nolan considered lying, but the weight of his discovery was crushing him. Vanessa's having an affair. Perry's expression shifted from shock to anger to sympathy in seconds. Are you certain? Certain enough? Nolan replied, with her new boss. Been going on at least 2 months from what I can piece together. What are you going to do? Confront her. Nolan rubbed his temples. I do not know yet. Part of me wants to walk away. Another part wants to burn everything to the ground. Careful with that second option. Perry warned. Scourged earth leaves nothing to rebuild on. Maybe there's nothing worth rebuilding. Nolan replied, his voice hollow. That evening Nolan received a text from Vanessa. Have to attend company gala this weekend. Brian insists all department heads be there. He stared at the name on the screen. She never mentioned her boss by first name before. A small slip that confirmed she had no idea Nolan knew. I thought that was next month. He replied, last-minute planning change. Sorry for the confusion. Do not wait up Saturday. Nolan set down his phone. A cold clarity washing over him. 12 years of marriage was dissolving before his eyes, but he was not going to be like his father or become a victim like his mother. If his marriage was ending, it would be on his terms. He called Leo Dawkins, his college roommate who now worked in corporate security. Leo, I need a favor. Off the books. Chapter 3, The Architect's Blueprint. Leo met Nolan at a bar across town. Away from anywhere Vanessa might have connections. A former military intelligence officer before moving to the private sector, Leo had the resources Nolan needed. I'm not helping you do anything illegal. Leo clarified immediately, keeping his voice low despite the ambient noise. I just need information, Nolan assured him. Background on Bryant, Donovan? Professional history, personal habits, any skeletons? Leo studied his old friend's face. And when you have this information, what then? Then I decide if my marriage is worth saving or if I need to protect myself. 3 days later, Nolan had what he needed. Bryant Donovan had an impressive resume, but also a pattern. 3 companies in 15 years, each departure following rumors of affairs with colleagues. His divorce had come after his ex-wife discovered his relationship with a subordinate. At Meridian Global, he fast-tracked Vanessa's promotion to senior director shortly after his arrival. Unusual, given her relatively short tenure. Most valuably, Leo discovered Bryant was being groomed to replace the retiring CEO Constance Albright in the next year. The appointment was not public knowledge yet, but the board had already made their decision. Bryant's pristine reputation was crucial to this transition. Nolan spent the next 2 weeks crafting his approach with the same meticulous attention he gave his architectural designs. He created a secure email account. He documented Vanessa's patterns, photographed her rendezvous with Bryant. He researched Meridian Global's corporate policies, particularly their strict rules against relationships between managers and subordinates. The company gala, the real one, not the fictional event Vanessa had used as cover for a weekend with Bryant, was approaching. Nolan found the invitation buried in Vanessa's desk drawer. He noted that despite her dismissals, it explicitly welcomed spouses and partners. He also discovered something else, a hotel receipt that Vanessa had accidentally printed with other work documents. The Archer Hotel downtown from 2 weeks prior, room service for 2, champagne, a charge for late checkout. The night before the gala, Vanessa mentioned casually over dinner. I have that work event tomorrow night. Probably will not be home until late. Nolan nodded. The quarterly review meeting, right? You mentioned it earlier this week. Right? She agreed. Looking relieved, he remembered the lie. It's usually a boring spreadsheet marathon. Well, good luck with it, he said, raising his wine glass in a toast. To climbing the corporate ladder, she clinked her glass against his, unaware that he had already RSVP'd to the gala as her night. While Vanessa slept, Nolan finalized his preparations. He was not going to confront her yet. The gala would be just the first move in a longer game, one where he controlled the board. The next morning, Nolan kissed Vanessa goodbye as she left for meetings before her fabricated review session. He waited until her car disappeared down the street before picking up his phone. Perry, I need a favor tonight. Chapter 4, The Gala Gambit. The Meridian Global Annual Gala transformed the grand ballroom of the Wentworth Hotel into a glittering showcase of corporate success. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over executives in tuxedos and designer gowns while waitstaff circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Nolan arrived precisely at 8:30 p.m. knowing Vanessa would already be inside. He wore the tuxedo he'd purchased specifically for this evening. A sharp Tom Ford that cost more than he'd ever spent on clothing. If he was walking into his wife's world, he would look the part. At the registration table, the hostess smiled. "Good evening, sir. Your name, Nolan Reeves. I'm Vanessa Reeves' husband." She checked her tablet. "Yes, Mr. Reeves. You re at table 7 with Senior Director Reeves. Welcome to Meridian Global's annual Excellence Gala." The ballroom was crowded, but Nolan spotted Vanessa immediately. She stood near the bar, laughing at something Bryant Donovan was saying. Her red dress, one Nolan had never seen before, complemented her figure perfectly. Bryant's hand rested casually against the small of her back, a possessive gesture between lovers, not colleagues. Nolan approached slowly, observing. 3 other executives stood with them, champagne flutes in hand. He recognized Constance Albright, the current CEO, among them. Vanessa saw him first. The shock on her face would have been comical under different circumstances. Her smile freezing, eyes widening, color draining from her cheeks. "Nolan," she exclaimed too loudly. "What are you doing here?" He leaned in to kiss her cheek, surprising my wife. "You mentioned how important these galas are and I wanted to support you." Bryant extended his hand. The picture of corporate confidence despite the momentary confusion in his eyes. "You must be Vanessa's husband." "Bryant Donovan, Chief Strategy Officer." "Nolan Reeves," he replied, shaking Bryant's hand firmly. "I've heard almost nothing about you." An awkward laugh from the group. Constance Albright stepped forward. "So you re the mysterious architect husband. Vanessa rarely brings you to our events." "Work keeps me busy," Nolan explained smoothly. "But I would not miss this one. Vanessa's been working such late hours recently. I was beginning to forget what she looked like." Vanessa's smile tightened. "Nolan, could I speak with you for a moment?" She led him to a quiet corner, her fingers digging into his arm. "What are you doing?" "I told you I had a review meeting tonight." "Did you?" Nolan asked innocently. "I must have misunderstood. When I saw the gala's invitation in your desk while looking for stamps, I assumed this was the work event you mentioned." "You went through my desk." Her voice was a controlled hiss. "Just looking for stamps," he repeated. "Should I not have come?" "Everyone's been so welcoming. Brian seems particularly friendly." Before she could respond, a chime announced dinner was being served. Nolan offered his arm with exaggerated courtesy. "Shall we? I believe we re at table 7. Throughout dinner, Nolan was the perfect spouse, charming, attentive, interested in Vanessa's colleagues. He asked Bryant insightful questions about Meridian's expansion strategy. He complimented Constance on the company's recent sustainability initiative. Nolan would have guessed the rage simmering beneath his polished exterior. After the main course, Vanessa excused herself to the ladies' room. Nolan noticed Bryant checking his watch, then following shortly afterward. Nolan gave them 2 minutes, then walked casually toward the corridor where the restrooms were located. He rounded the corner just in time to see Bryant pulling Vanessa into a secluded alcove. "What's he doing here?" Bryant demanded in a hushed voice. "I do not know," Vanessa replied. "He must have found the invitation." "Get rid of him after dinner," Bryant ordered. "Say you have to stay for a leadership meeting. We'll still have time at my place later." Nolan retreated before they could spot him, returning to the table with a composed expression. When Vanessa returned, he smiled warmly. "Everything okay, honey? You were gone a while." "Just touching up my makeup," she lied. After dinner, as couples moved to the dance floor, Nolan asked Vanessa to dance. She could not refuse without causing a scene. As they swayed to the music, he whispered in her ear, "By the way, I need to use your phone. Mine died and I'm expecting a client call." "Ca not wait until we get home?" "It's the Westerjack account," he insisted. "Potential 7-figure project. 2 minutes, I promise." Reluctantly, she retrieved her phone from her clutch and handed it to him. Nolan stepped away, pretending to make a call while actually navigating to her messages. He found the conversation with Bryant, quickly forwarded the most incriminating exchanges to his own email, then deleted the forwarded message from her sent folder. When he returned, Vanessa was speaking with Constance. Nolan, the CEO, greeted him. "I was just telling Vanessa how impressive your restoration of the Wilson building was. My husband and I attended the reopening gala." "Thank you." Nolan replied, "It was a labor of love." "Speaking of your work," Constance continued, "would you and Vanessa join my husband and me for dinner next weekend? He's on the Historical Preservation Board and is fascinated by your approach to modernizing historical structures." Before Vanessa could intervene, Nolan smiled. "We'd be delighted." As the evening progressed, Nolan noted Vanessa growing increasingly agitated. When she finally suggested they leave, claiming an early meeting the next day, he agreed readily. In the car, silence stretched between them until Vanessa finally spoke. "Why did you really come tonight? I told you I found the invitation and wanted to support you. You've never been interested in these corporate events before." Nolan kept his eyes on the road. 12 years of marriage, and you think you know what I'm interested in? The question hung between them, heavier than either anticipated. When they arrived home, Vanessa checked her phone immediately, frowning at the lack of messages. "Expecting something?" Nolan asked. "Just checking work emails," she said, disappearing into the bathroom. That night, as Vanessa slept beside him, Nolan sent a text from his secure phone to the number Leo had provided for Bryant. "I know about you and Vanessa. We should talk. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Riverside Park bench near the boat launch." The response came within minutes. "Who is this?" Nolan did not reply. Instead, he attached one of the photos he'd taken of Bryant and Vanessa outside the Archer Hotel. Then turned off the phone. The game had begun. Chapter 5: Counterattack. Bryant did not show at Riverside Park the next morning. Nolan had not expected him to. Men like Bryant did not respond well to threats. But the message had served its purpose. Bryant now knew someone was watching. What Nolan had not anticipated was Vanessa's reaction when she returned from brunch with girlfriends that afternoon. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Her movements agitated. "We need to talk," she said, sitting across from him at the kitchen island. Someone's threatening Bryant with false accusations. Nolan set aside his laptop. "What kind of accusations?" "Some ridiculous claim about an affair. They sent him a doctored photo." Her voice was steady, but her fingers tapped nervously against the countertop. "He thinks it might be someone at work trying to sabotage his promotion. That's disturbing." Nolan replied, watching her closely. "Why are you so upset about your boss's problems?" "Because they included me in these lies," she said. "The photo showed me with him," suggesting we're. She trailed off, unable to complete the sentence. "That's absurd." Nolan agreed, perfectly matching her outrage. "What did security say?" "Bryant does not want to involve company security yet. It could draw attention to the false allegations." She hesitated. "He actually suggested it might be you." Nolan made a show of stunned disbelief. "Me? Why would I do that?" "That's what I told him. But he said you seemed off at the gala, watching us." "I was observing my wife in her professional element." Nolan countered. "But if Bryant wants to discuss his concerns directly, I'm happy to meet with him." "No," Vanessa said quickly. "That would just escalate things. I told him you would not do something like this." "Well, I appreciate your faith in me," Nolan replied, noting how readily she had defended Bryant's interests over considering whether her husband might have legitimate concerns. The next morning, Nolan found Vanessa already awake, frowning at her laptop. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Someone accessed my work email yesterday," she said. "IT security flagged unusual login activity. Could it be related to those threats against Bryant?" She glanced up sharply. "Maybe. You should change all your passwords," he suggested helpfully. Knowing she would, cutting off his access but also confirming his suspicions that she was worried about what he might find. That afternoon, Harry called Nolan's office with troubling news. "Someone's been asking questions about your firm's financial stability. A potential client called to verify we're solvent before signing a contract." "What did you tell them?" "The truth. That we're solid. But it's weird timing. Who would suddenly question our finances when we just landed the Westridge project?" Nolan knew exactly who. "Keep your eyes open. And back up all our client records and financial documents. Just in case." The counterattack escalated that evening. Nolan received an email from his bank flagging suspicious activity. Someone had attempted to access his business accounts. The IP address traced back to Meridian Global's corporate network. A day later, 2 potential clients canceled meetings with Nolan's firm, citing concerns about recent reviews. A quick search revealed newly posted negative reviews on industry platforms, all dated within the past 24 hours, all mentioning unprofessional conduct and financial irregularities. Vanessa's behavior shifted as well. She began mentioning Nolan's moodiness to their friends, suggesting he was experiencing professional setbacks that were affecting his mental health. When they attended a dinner party that weekend, she repeatedly interrupted his stories, clarifying details and ways that subtly undermine him. That's like she's laying groundwork. Nolan told Perry over lunch, creating a narrative where I'm unstable and failing professionally. Classic gaslighting. Perry agreed. Are you sure you want to keep playing this out? Why not just confront her with what you know? Nolan shook his head. Not yet. Bryant is protecting his reputation before the CEO announcement. If I move too soon, they'll just deny everything and paint me as paranoid. So what's your next step? I need to understand exactly what they're replanning. And I need leverage. Something more than just evidence of the affair. That evening, Nolan initiated an unexpected tactic. When Vanessa arrived home, he greeted her with dinner and wine. What's the occasion? She asked suspiciously. I've been distracted lately with work, he said. Thought we should reconnect. Throughout dinner, he steered the conversation toward her job, expressing renewed interest in Meridian's corporate strategy. He asked about Bryant's leadership approach, nodding appreciatively at her responses. He said, thoughtfully refilling her wine glass. I've been thinking about that dinner invitation from Constance. Could be good for both of us. Her husband's connections to the historical board could help my business. And you'd be seen socializing with the CEO outside of work. Vanessa hesitated, clearly caught between her secret relationship with Bryant and the professional advantage of closer ties to Constance. I suppose it could be beneficial, she conceded. Great. I'll confirm with her office tomorrow, Nolan said, raising his glass. To new opportunities. As they clinked glasses, Nolan's phone chained with a text. He checked it, his expression darkening. What is it? Vanessa asked. Nothing important, he replied, but allowed her to see his concern. Just a client issue. Later, while Vanessa showered, Nolan made a show of making a private call in their home office. Loud enough for her to potentially overhear when she emerged. I understand, Leo. Yes, I'll get those documents to you. No, I have not discussed it with Vanessa yet. This needs to stay quiet until we reassure. When he ended the call, Vanessa was standing in the doorway. Who was that? Just a work thing, Nolan said, appearing startled by her presence. Legal consultation for a project. The seed of doubt planted. Nolan watched as Vanessa retreated to their bedroom, phone already in hand. Within minutes, he received an alert that his home office computer was being accessed remotely, using the emergency access software they de-installed years ago for working from home. He smiled to himself. They were taking the bait. Chapter 6 Pressure Points. The dinner with Constance Albright and her husband, Harold, proved pivotal. Held at the exclusive Fox Hollow Club, it brought together the current CEO of Meridian Global and her husband, a prominent figure on the city's historical preservation board, with Nolan and Vanessa. Nolan arrived prepared. He de-researched Harold's preservation projects extensively and brought conceptual sketches for a restoration idea he knew would interest him. These are remarkable, Harold said, examining Nolan's drawings. You've preserved the neoclassical elements while introducing modern functionality. Architecture is about honoring history while building for the future. Nolan replied. Constance observed their exchange with interest. Vanessa rarely mentions your work. Nolan, I'm impressed by your portfolio. Vanessa and I have always maintained separate professional lives. Nolan explained smoothly, though lately, I've been taking more interest in her world at Meridian. Speaking of which, Constance turned to Vanessa. The board was quite impressed with your presentation last quarter. Brian mentioned you've been instrumental in the new marketing strategy. Vanessa smiled, though Nolan noted the tension in her shoulders at the mention of Brian's name. Brian has been an exceptional mentor. He speaks very highly of you. Constance agreed, though he seemed concerned about something when I saw him yesterday. Mentioned potential security issues. Nothing serious, Vanessa assured her. Just routine precautions. As dinner progressed, Harold offered Nolan an unexpected opportunity. The Preservation Board is seeking an architectural consultant for the downtown revitalization project. Would you be interested? Absolutely, Nolan responded, ignoring Vanessa's surprised expression. That's exactly the kind of project my firm specializes in. By the evening's end, Nolan had secured not only a potential major contract, but also a golf outing with Harold the following weekend. Vanessa remained quiet during the drive home. Finally, breaking the silence as they entered their house. You never mentioned you were pursuing the downtown project. Nolan shrugged. It just came up naturally in conversation. And the golf invitation? You hate golf. I can learn. Harold's connections could transform our firm's prospects. Vanessa studied him. You've never been interested in networking before. People change, Vanessa. Sometimes they surprise you. The next morning, Nolan received a text from an unknown number. Back off. Final warning. He forwarded it to Leo, who traced it to a burner phone purchased near Brian's apartment building. Exactly as expected. That afternoon, Perry called with more concerning news. Someone's been calling our clients, claiming our firm is under investigation for permit violations. 2 more projects are on hold pending clarification. Document everything. Nolan instructed. We'll meet it later. The attacks intensified. Nolan's personal credit score suddenly dropped 150 points due to unpaid accounts he never opened. His car was keyed in the office parking lot. A building inspector showed up at one of their project sites, claiming to have received an anonymous tip about code violations. Meanwhile, Vanessa grew increasingly distant, working later hours and offering thinner excuses. Nolan noticed her moving personal items, jewelry, important documents, family photos, from their usual places. She was preparing for something. One evening, he pretended to fall asleep early, then watched through barely open eyes as she carefully searched his office, photographing documents with her phone. When she left for a late meeting, he followed her to Brian's downtown loft. It was time for his count of move. The next day, Nolan attended Harold's charity golf tournament. As expected, several board members from Radiant Global were present, including members of the selection committee for the CEO position. During lunch, Nolan found himself seated with Walter Phillips, the head of the selection committee. Their conversation remained casual until Walter mentioned impressive fellow. Walter commented, "Clean record, strong leadership. Constance speaks highly of him." Nolan nodded. He's certainly focused on his career. You know him well. Only through Vanessa. They were closely together. Walter's expression shifted slightly. How closely? Nolan hesitated as if reluctant to continue. Actually, I've been meaning to ask someone at Meridian about professional boundaries. Vanessa mentions late meetings, but I've noticed communications that seem unusually personal. What kind of communications? Walter asked, his voice carefully neutral. Text messages, late-night calls. Probably nothing. Nolan backtracked. Corporate culture can blur professional lines. Indeed it can. Walter agreed. But Meridian takes its code of conduct very seriously, especially regarding relationships between executives and their direct reports. Nolan looked appropriately concerned. I'm sure there's nothing inappropriate happening. Vanessa values her professional reputation too much. The seed planted, Nolan changed the subject, but noticed Walter observing Bryant more carefully throughout the afternoon. That evening, Nolan received a call from Constance Albright herself, asking if he could come to her office the next morning. There's a matter I'd like to discuss in person, she said. It concerns Vanessa. Of course, Nolan agreed. Is everything all right? Let's talk tomorrow. Constance replied. When Nolan arrived home, Vanessa was waiting for him, her expression cold. I just received a meeting request from HR and Constance for tomorrow morning. Do you know anything about this? No, Nolan lied. Maybe it's about your promotion? Do not play innocent, she snapped. Bryant received the same summons. What did you say to Walter Phillips today? Walter? We just talked about architecture and golf. Want? Vanessa's eyes narrowed. You trying to sabotage me. Just like you've been sabotaging Bryant with those anonymous messages. Vanessa, I do not know what you talking about. Stop lying. She stepped closer, voice shaking. I know you installed tracking software on my phone. I know you've been following me. Bryant's security team found everything. Nolan allowed his expression to harden. And what exactly did they find, Vanessa? Evidence that I'm concerned about my wife's increasingly secret of behavior, or evidence of something you do not want to admit. This is exactly why I never told anyone at work about our problems. She hissed. You unstable, paranoid, jealous of my success. Is that the story you going with? Nolan asked quietly. That I'm unstable? Not that you've been sleeping with your boss for months. The color drained from Vanessa's face. You have no proof of that. Nolan smiled coldly. That where you wrong. Before she could respond, his phone rang. The screen displayed Perry's name. I need to take this, Nolan said, stepping into his office and closing the door. That's happening. Perry reported. Someone tried to access our firm's bank accounts again. But this time, the bank's fraud department caught it and reversed the transfers. They recorded the attempts and are filing a police report. Perfect timing. Nolan replied. Keep me updated. When he emerged, Vanessa was on her phone, speaking frantically in hushed tones. She ended the call when she saw him. Everything okay? He asked. Fine, she replied stiffly. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. I see not be around you right now. Nolan nodded. Probably for the best. We both have important meetings tomorrow. After she left, Nolan poured himself a drink and sat in the dark and living room. Tomorrow would determine if his carefully constructed plan would succeed or if Brian's resources would overpower him. Either way, there was no turning back. Chapter 7: The Boardroom. Nolan arrived at Meridian Global's headquarters 30 minutes before his scheduled meeting with Constance. The glass and steel tower reflected the morning sunlight. Symbolic of the corporate power Bryant and Vanessa had wielded against him. Impressive from the outside, but ultimately transparent. Security escorted him to a waiting area outside the executive floor. Through the glass walls, he could see various conference rooms, including one where Bryant sat alone, repeatedly checking his watch. At precisely 9 a.m., Constance's assistant appeared. Mr. Reeves? Ms. Albright will see you now. The CEO's office occupied the northeast corner of the building, offering panoramic views of the city. Constance stood as he entered, gesturing to a seating area rather than her desk. Thank you for coming, Nolan, she began. I apologize for the unusual request. Not at all, he replied. Though I'm curious about its nature. Constance studied him carefully. Some concerning information has come to the board's attention regarding Bryant, Donovan, and your wife. Before we proceed with formal interviews, I wanted to speak with you privately. I see, Nolan said. May I ask what kind of information? Allegations of an inappropriate relationship. She replied directly, along with suggestions that Mr. Donovan may have fast-tracked Vanessa's promotion based on personal rather than professional considerations. Nolan maintained a neutral expression. That's disturbing. Indeed, normally we would not involve spouses and internal matters, but given the sensitivity of the situation and certain comments you made to Walter Phillips, I thought a discreet conversation might be illuminating. I appreciate your discretion, Nolan said. What exactly would you like to know? Do you have any reason to believe these allegations might be true? Nolan sighed. The picture of a reluctant husband. I've had concerns about their professional relationship for some time. Late-night calls, weekend meetings, text messages that seem personal rather than professional. Have you confronted Vanessa about these concerns? I tried gently. She accused me of being paranoid and jealous of her success. Constance nodded thoughtfully. Walter mentioned you had observed communications between them. This was the crucial moment. Nolan reached into his jacket and removed a USB drive. I did not want to do this, but given the circumstances, this contains text messages between them. I apologize for having accessed them, but Vanessa left her cloud account open on our shared computer. A half-truth. He had accessed the messages, but through the forwarding he'd done at the Gala, not through her cloud account. Constance accepted the drive. Our HR department will need to review this. You understand this may have serious consequences for both Bryant and Vanessa. I understand, Nolan replied, but I believe in professional integrity. If Brian has been using his position inappropriately, that reflects on Meridian's culture. A perfect appeal to the CEO's corporate values. Constance nodded in agreement. There's something else you should know. Nolan continued. Since discovering these messages, I've experienced what appears to be retaliation. business clients receiving false information about my firm, attempts to access my company's financial accounts, personal credit fraud, all traceable to Meridian's corporate network. Constance's expression darkened. Those are serious allegations. I've documented everything, Nolan assured her. I was not planning to pursue it legally. I was hoping to resolve things privately with Vanessa. But if these are connected to Mr. Donovan's attempts to silence me, I will personally ensure this is investigated thoroughly, Constance promised. Corporate resources should never be used for personal vendetta. Their meeting concluded with Constance asking Nolan to remain available throughout the morning. He was escorted to a private conference room, where he watched the corporate drama unfold through glass walls. Bryant was summoned next. His confidence dried, faltering slightly as he entered Constance's office. 30 minutes later, he emerged looking Asian, immediately pulling out his phone as he walked briskly toward his office. Vanessa arrived for her 10:30 appointment, wearing a composed expression that Nolan recognized as her professional mask. She did not see him in the conference room as she passed. While waiting, Nolan received a text from Perry. Police called. They re-investigating the fraud attempts against her firm. Traced back to a Meridian Global IP address. Perfect timing. Nolan forwarded the message to Constance with a simple note. FYI, this is escalating beyond my control. At 11:15, Nolan observed two security guards entering Bryant's office. Minutes later, they escorted him out, carrying a box of personal items. Bryant's face was rigid with suppressed fury. At 11:45, Vanessa emerged from Constance's office, her face pale with shock. As she walked past the conference room, she finally noticed Nolan. The look she gave him contained pure venom. At noon, Constance's assistant escorted Nolan back to the CEO's office. Thank you for your patience, Constance said, her expression grave. This has been an extremely difficult morning. Based on the evidence provided in our internal investigation, Bryant Donovan has been terminated for violations of our ethics policy. Nolan nodded solemnly. And Vanessa? She has been placed on administrative leave pending further review. The text messages clearly show she was a willing participant, but there are concerns about power dynamics given Bryant's position as her superior. I understand, Nolan said quietly. May I ask what happens next? That depends partly on you, Constance replied. Meridian would prefer to handle this matter internally without public scandal. However, if you intend to pursue legal action regarding the financial attacks, my priority is resolving my personal situation with Vanessa, Nolan assured her. As for the business interference, if it stops immediately, I'm inclined to let the matter rest. Relief flickered across Constance's face. I believe that can be arranged. And Nolan, for what it's worth, I'm truly sorry about all of this, both professionally and personally. As Nolan left Meridian's headquarters, his phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. UV destroyed everything. Hope you resatisfied. Do not come home tonight if you know what's good for you. Nolan did not reply. The first phase of his plan had succeeded beyond expectations, but he knew the personal reckoning still lay ahead. Chapter 8: Collateral Damage. The fallout was swift and severe. By evening, the downtown legal community was buzzing with rumors about Bryant's abrupt departure from Meridian Global. The official statement cited personal reasons, but insiders whispered about ethical violations involving a female executive. Nolan checked into a hotel as Vanessa requested, not out of fear but strategic patience. That night, Perry called with disturbing news. Someone broke into our office, he reported. Files scattered everywhere, but nothing seems missing. Police think it was meant to intimidate rather than steal. Security cameras? Nolan asked. Disabled. But a neighboring business caught a black test law on their footage. Bryant was growing desperate. Exactly as Nolan had anticipated. The next morning, Nolan met Leo for breakfast at a diner far from their usual haunts. They're scrambling, Leo confirmed, sliding a folder across the table. Bryant liquidated 2 investment accounts yesterday. Vanessa emptied your joint savings account. $30,000. Nolan nodded. Expect it. There's more. Bryant S. been making calls to contacts in London and Singapore. Sounds like he's looking for exit options before the real scandal breaks. And the other matter? Leo handed him a USB drive. All there. Financial records showing Bryant's previous settlements with former colleagues. 3 women at different companies paid for their silence. His ex-wife's divorce settlement included a hefty non-disclosure agreement. Meridian's board will be interested in this. Nolan used, especially since they were about to name him CEO. Be careful, Nolan. Leo warned. Bryant's desperate. And Vanessa knows all your vulnerabilities. That afternoon, Nolan received a call from Walter Phillips, requesting a discreet meeting at his club. Upon arrival, Nolan found not only Walter, but 3 other Meridian board members. Will be direct. Walter began after introductions. Constance shared your evidence regarding Bryant and your wife. The board has additional concerns about Bryant's history that have recently come to light. One of the other members, Diana Kerrigan, continued. We're facing a delicate situation. Bryant threatens legal action for wrongful termination. He claims you fabricated evidence due to personal vendettas. I understand your position, Nolan replied calmly, but the evidence speaks for itself. Perhaps Walter acknowledged, but legal battles create publicity none of us want. Shareholders get nervous. Stock prices fluctuate. Nolan recognized the implied request. What exactly are you asking of me? Your discretion, Diana stated. In exchange for Meridian's assurance that any business disruptions you've experienced will cease immediately. I have no interest in damaging Meridian's reputation. Nolan assured them. My concern was always Bryant's abuse of power, and its effect on my marriage. The relief around the table was palpable. There is one other matter. Nolan added carefully. I believe Bryant may have a history of similar situations at previous companies. If that information were to reach you through appropriate channels, would the board be interested? Walter and Diana exchanged glances. The board is always concerned with the integrity of its executive team, past and present. Walter replied carefully. The meeting concluded with tacit understanding. Nolan would provide the additional evidence through a third party, allowing the board to pressure Bryant into a quiet departure without legal challenges. As Nolan left the club, his phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. We need to talk. Meet me at home. 7 p.m. When Nolan arrived at their house that evening, he found Vanessa waiting in the living room, a glass of wine in hand. She'd lost the corporate polish of recent months. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair pulled back carelessly. So this was your plan all along. She began without preamble. Destroy my career to punish me. No, Nolan replied, remaining standing. My plan was to understand why my wife of 12 years suddenly decided I was nothing more than a roommate. Do not be dramatic. It was one comment at a party. It was months of lies, Vanessa. Hotel receipts, fake work meetings, deleted messages. You were systematically erasing our marriage while I watched it happen. She took a long sip of wine, and your solution was to get me fired? To ruin Bryant's life? You got yourself fired by violating corporate ethics. Bryant ruined his own life by pursuing a married subordinate, and then using company resources to attack her husband's business. Those are just allegations, she countered weakly. Allegations with evidence. The same evidence I've shared with Meridian's board. The police investigating the fraud attempts against my firm and my attorney. Vanessa's composure cracked. What do you want from me, Nolan? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. He represented everything I thought I wanted. Power, ambition, connections, and what did I represent? The struggling architect you outgrew? You were comfortable. She replied, the words clearly painful for both of them. Safe. I thought I wanted more. And now I have nothing. She said bitterly. Administrative leave is just the first step. Once the ethics investigation concludes, I'll be terminated. Bryant's already blaming me, claiming I manipulated him. No other company will touch me after this. Nolan studied the woman he loved for 12 years, searching for any remnant of the person he demarried. What did you think would happen, Vanessa? That I'd just accept being introduced as your roommate, that I would not notice the affair. I thought you'd fight for me. She whispered unexpectedly. Confront me, rage at me, demand I choose, not orchestrate this corporate execution. The admission caught Nolan off guard. Would you have chosen me if I had? Her silence was answering enough. I need you out of the house by the end of the week. Nolan said finally. My attorney will contact you about divorce proceedings. You thought of everything, have not you? Vanessa remarked, a hint of grudging admiration in her voice. The dedicated husband, the wrong spouse, while on the corporate climber who sacrificed her marriage for advancement. You wrote that narrative, not me, Nolan replied. I just made sure people read it. As he turned to leave, Vanessa called after him. Bryant would not let this go. Yes, not like me. He does not accept defeat. I'm counting on it. Nolan said quietly, closing the door behind him. Chapter 9, Final Blueprint. 3 days later, Bryant Donovan made his move. Nolan was meeting with Harold Albright about the downtown revitalization project when his phone began buzzing with urgent messages. A local business blog had published an exclusive about architectural fraud, claiming Nolan's firm had falsified structural safety reports on 3 major projects. The source was anonymous, but claimed to be a former employee with documentation. Simultaneously, the city building department received formal complaints about each project, triggering mandatory inspections. Perry called in a panic as reporters began contacting their clients. It's a coordinated attack, Nolan told Harold calmly. My firm is being targeted by Bryant Donovan in retaliation for the Meridian situation. Harold's expression darkened. Constance mentioned there were concerns about his departure, but falsifying safety claims is serious. It could destroy public confidence in your projects even if disproven. The claims are entirely fabricated. Nolan assured him. Our work undergoes rigorous third-party verification, but Bryant knows that public perception can do damage regardless of facts. What will you do? Nolan checked his watch. Exactly what I've been planning for. That afternoon, Walter Phillips received a package from an anonymous source containing Bryant's complete history. Financial records of previous settlements, NDAs with former colleagues, corporate funds used for personal expenses. The package was simultaneously delivered to 5 financial journalists known for investigating corporate malfeasance. By evening, Bryant's attempt to damage Nolan had backfired spectacularly. Meridian Global issued a statement distancing itself from recent unfounded allegations against Reeves Architecture, while emphasizing its commitment to ethical corporate practices and zero tolerance for retaliatory behavior. The business blog retracted its story, citing concerns about source credibility. The building department expedited inspections of Nolan's projects, finding all safety standards not only met, but exceeded. But Bryant's most desperate move came at midnight when Nolan received a call from Leo. Security alert at your house, Leo reported. Motion detectors triggered in your home office. Camera feed? Nolan asked, already driving toward his home. Masked figure. Appears to be searching your files. Police dispatched. Nolan arrived just as police were handcuffing Bryant Donovan in the driveway. The former executive had broken in, apparently seeking to retrieve or plant evidence. Instead, he triggered the enhanced security system Nolan had installed weeks earlier. He had these on him. An officer told Nolan, showing him a folder of doctored financial documents and a flash drive. Looks like he was planning to plant false evidence. The arrest made headlines by morning. Former Meridian executive arrested in breaking and entering. The corporate world Bryant had navigated so smoothly now watched his public downfall with the same fascination reserved for any fallen power player. Vanessa called Nolan that afternoon, her voice hollow. Bryant's attorney reached out to me. He's claiming I put him up to this, that we planned everything together to secure my promotion. Did you? Nolan asked simply. No, she whispered. But no one will believe that now. 1 week later, Nolan attended a board meeting at Meridian Global. No longer as a spouse but as a consultant. The downtown revitalization project had expanded with Meridian investing as a major corporate partner. Constance introduced him to the board with genuine respect. Mr. Reeves brings not only architectural expertise, but a commitment to integrity that aligns with Meridian's values. After the meeting, Constance asked Nolan to stay behind. "I never properly thank you," she said when they were alone. "Your evidence saved us from a potentially disastrous CEO appointment." "I was protecting my own interests," Nolan replied honestly. "Nevertheless, the board recognizes your discretion throughout this uncomfortable situation. The partnership on the downtown project is well-deserved." "And Vanessa?" Nolan asked. "What will happen to her?" Constance's expression softened slightly. "The ethics committee concluded their investigation. She LLB offered a settlement package in exchange for her resignation and non-disclosure. We would not prevent her from finding employment elsewhere, though not at her previous level." Nolan nodded, surprised to find he felt no satisfaction at this news. Fair enough. A spring turned to summer. Nolan moved forward with rebuilding his life. The downtown project thrived under his guidance. His firm expanded, hiring 2 additional architects to handle the increasing workload. The divorce proceeded without drama. Vanessa accepted the terms Nolan offered. Fair, but not generous. She moved to Chicago, eventually taking a mid-level position with a marketing firm. They did not speak again after the final papers were signed. 1 year to the day after the company Gala, where everything had imploded, Nolan hosted a small gathering at his newly purchased downtown loft. Harry was there with his wife, Leo, and his partner, Harold and Constance Albright, and several other friends and colleagues who had supported him through the previous year. As the evening wound down, Harry found Nolan on the balcony looking out over the city lights. "Quite a view," Harry commented. "Worth every penny, I'd say." Nolan smiled. "It's not about the money. It's about building something that lasts." "Speaking of building," Harry said carefully, "that woman from the Historical Society has been asking about you again. Diane, smart, attractive, clearly interested." "I noticed," Nolan admitted, "and it's been a year." "Nolan. Life goes on." Nolan considered this. "I'm not sure I'm ready for another blueprint just yet. Some designs evolve naturally." Harry suggested. "No need for detailed plans." Inside, Diane caught Nolan's eye across the room and smiled. He smiled back, surprised to find it felt genuine. Later, as guests departed, Constance paused at the door. "I heard from Walter that Brian's back in London. Small financial firm, nothing like what he had here." "And you?" Nolan asked. "Any regrets about not promoting him?" "None whatsoever," she replied firmly. "The board made the right decision, even if we needed some help seeing it clearly." After everyone had gone, Nolan stood alone in his new home. On a shelf near the entrance sat a single framed photo, not of his former marriage, but of his first completed building design. A reminder that he had built something worthwhile once and could do so again. He picked up his phone, finding Diane's contact information that Perry had subtly added earlier. His finger hovered over it momentarily. Some blueprints were worth revisiting. Others were better left in the archives. The trick was knowing which was which. Nolan made his choice and press call. Epilogue: 5 years later, the architect's legacy. The expansive windows of Reeves and Morales Architecture's downtown headquarters offered a commanding view of the city skyline, a skyline that now featured 3 distinctive buildings designed by the firm. On the 40th floor of the Meridian Tower, Nolan Reeves stood with his back to the panorama, addressing the gathered team of 28 architects and designers. "The Westlake Cultural Center represents more than just our largest project to date," he explained, gesturing to the intricate model dominating the conference table. "It's a statement about preserving history while creating space for future generations." At 41, Nolan had grown into his success with a quiet confidence. The lean hunger of his earlier career had transformed into something more measured and assured. Silver threaded his temples now, lending gravitas to his appearance, while the lines at the corners of his eyes spoke of both laughter and hardship overcome. Perry Morales, now handling the firm's business operations exclusively, leaned against the wall with undisguised pride. The struggling 2-man operation they started had evolved into one of the city's premier architectural firms, known for innovative historical renovations and sustainable urban designs. As the meeting concluded, Nolan's assistant, Miguel, approached with a tablet. The mayor's office confirmed for Thursday, and the Architectural Digest photographer needs to reschedule to next week. "Fine with both," Nolan replied, gathering his notes. "Anything else?" "Miss Hartford called. She'll meet you at Osteria at 7 instead of 630. Board meeting ran long." Nolan nodded, a small smile softening his features at the mention of Diane Hartford. His relationship with the former Historical Society director had progressed slowly and deliberately over the past 4 years, both of them cautious after previous marriages. Now the executive director of the city's Arts Council, Diane, matched him in ambition, intelligence, and the careful way they built trust between them. Tell Perry I wanna's input on the Westlake materials budget before I leave, Nolan added, heading toward his office. Inside, he closed the door and took a moment to absorb the quiet. The space reflected the man he'd become, ordered without being rigid, the organic shapes of his architectural models balanced against the clean lines of modern furniture. A series of framed photographs lined one wall. The ribbon cutting for the downtown revitalization project, Nolan shaking hands with the mayor, the firm's team at the annual charity gala. Conspicuously absent were any images from his previous life with Vanessa. Nolan settled behind his desk, opened his laptop, and found himself staring at the calendar date. September 15th. 5 years to the day since he made that faithful phone call from the bathroom at Meridian Global's Gala. 5 years since everything had changed. With a practiced motion born of habit, he opened his personal email and checked a specific folder. It contained sporadic updates from Leo, who had left corporate security 3 years earlier to start his own firm, but still maintained their friendship and still kept tabs on certain individuals as a personal favor. The most recent update was from 2 months ago, subject quarterly intelligence. Donovan remains at Finch and Weatherby, London, no promotions since initial hire. Apartment in Kensington downgraded to smaller unit last year. Social media suggest relationship with coworker, no engagement announcements. Be still at Crescent Marketing Chicago, now creative director, promotion last quarter. LinkedIn shows expanded client list, no serious relationships visible on social media. Mother's obituary from March lists her as surviving daughter, no mention of partner/spouse. Meridian Global's restructuring complete under CA's continued leadership. Stock up 17% since last quarter. No indications of our subjects having any contact with former employer. Usual confidentiality applies. Drinks next time you in Boston. Nolan closed the email without replying. He no longer needed these updates, had not truly needed them for years, but they had become a ritual, a quarterly reminder of the life he'd left behind and the calculated risks he'd taken. His desk phone buzzed. Mr. Reeves, Perry has those budget figures for you, Miguel announced. Send him in, Nolan replied, closing the email folder and returning to the present. Perry entered with a flash drive and his characteristic energy. At 43, he remained a more exuberant partner, handling client relations with natural charm while Nolan focused on design and creative direction. The Westlake numbers look good, Perry began, then paused, studying his friend's face. Everything okay? You've got that look. What look? Nolan asked. The one you get on September 15th every year. Perry replied without missing a beat. The anniversary look. Nolan leaned back in his chair. Just reflecting. 5 years is a significant milestone. 5 years of unprecedented success. Perry corrected. 5 years since you made the decision that saved both our careers and set us on this path. That's one way of looking at it. Perry settled into the chair across from him. Have you heard anything? The usual update from Leo. Nothing significant. And you still checking because? Nolan considered the question. Habit mostly. Insurance partly. You know what my wife would say about this. Perry observed. Teresa would tell you that continuing to track their lives means they still have power over yours. Teresa charges $200 an hour to dispense that kind of wisdom to her therapy clients. Nolan countered with a slight smile. And she's worth every penny. Perry insisted. Seriously though? Nolan, at what point do you stop monitoring people who are no longer relevant to your life? The question hung between them, more pointed than their usual exchanges. Perhaps because of the 5-year milestone. Perhaps because Nolan had been considering the same question himself. I'll think about it. He conceded finally. Good. Perry stood. Now, about these Westlake figures. They spent the next hour immersed in project details. The conversation about the past temporarily set aside. When Perry left, Nolan remained at his desk reflecting on his friend's question. The truth was more complex than he'd admitted. Tracking Vanessa and Bryant was not about fear or power. It was about understanding the ripple effects of his own actions. The architect and him needed to know how his designs played out, even the human ones. At 6:30, Nolan left the office for his dinner with Diane. As the elevator descended, he made a decision. 5 years was enough. Tonight would be his last update from the past. It was time to fully build on the present. The fallen strategist. The London rain fell in a persistent drizzle, rendering Canary Wharf's gleaming towers into blurred monoliths against the gray sky. Brian Donovan huddled deeper into his overcoat as he navigated the crowded sidewalk toward the Finch and Weatherby offices. At 48, Bryant's once distinguished salt and pepper hair had faded to a dull gray, though he still maintained the meticulous grooming habits of his executive days. His Italian suits had been replaced by more modest London tailoring, fined by ordinary standards, but a constant reminder of how far he'd fallen from his peak at Meridian Global. He passed a newsstand displaying the Financial Times, where the headline announced Constance Albright's retirement from Meridian Global and her replacement by Diana Kerrigan, the same board member who had witnessed his humiliation 5 years earlier. Bryant did not break stride, but the muscle in his jaw tightened. That should have been him. CEO of Meridian Global had been his for the taking. The pinnacle of a carefully planned career trajectory, positioned perfectly until Nolan Reeves had systematically dismantled everything. He swiped his badge at the Finch and Weatherby entrance, nodding curtly to the receptionist. As director of market analysis, he occupied a respectable but ultimately middling position within the firm's hierarchy. His initial hire had been a favor from an old Oxford classmate, the only one who would touch him after the spectacular implosion at Meridian. Morning, Dawn, called Martin Fletcher, one of the junior analysts, using the nickname Bryant had adopted in London. The name Bryant, Dawn, had been carried too much baggage, too many unpleasant Google results. Dawn was safer, easier to reinvent. Morning, Bryant replied mechanically, continuing to his office. The space was adequate but lacked the corner office grandeur he'd enjoyed in his previous life. No floor-to-ceiling windows, no private bathroom, no executive assistant managing his schedule. Just an ordinary office for an ordinary director who had once been extraordinary. His computer chained with an incoming video call request from Claudia Bennett, Finch and Weatherby CFO, and Bryant's current romantic entanglement. Their relationship remained discreetly professional at work. Bryant had learned that lesson painfully, but provided him with some semblance of the status and comfort he craved. Dawn, darling, Claudia greeted when he accepted the call. Reminder about dinner with the Phillips Group tonight, 7:30 at the Ivy. On my calendar, Bryant confirmed, noticing how Claudia's blonde hair and confident manner echoed Vanessa's. He realized years ago that he had a type, ambitious women who admired his strategic mind, women he could mentor and shape into allies. The partnership announcement should come through next quarter. Claudia continued, lowering her voice conspiratorially. Barrington practically confirmed it yesterday. You've earned this, Dawn. Partnership at Finch and Weatherby. The carrot that had been dangled before him for 3 years now. A respectable achievement, but nowhere near the corporate heights he once commanded. Still, it represented his best hope for financial recovery after the legal expenses and settlement payments that had drained his resources. Let's not count our bonuses before they're deposited. Bryant replied with practiced caution. After ending the call, he pulled up the quarterly analysis his team had prepared. The work was challenging enough to engage his strategic mind, but ultimately unfulfilling. He had become a cog in someone else's machine. Precisely the fate he spent his entire career avoiding. During his lunch break, Bryant did what he had promised himself he would not do today. He searched for news about Meridian Global's leadership transition. The official press release included a photograph of Constance Albright standing beside her successor. Both women smiling confidently against the backdrop of Meridian's logo. A sidebar article caught his attention. Meridian partners with Reeves and Morales on sustainable campus expansion. The accompanying photo showed Nolan Reeves presenting architectural plans to Meridian's board, looking every inch to successful businessman Bryant had once been. 5 years, and the sight of Nolan Reeves still produced a visceral reaction, a cocktail of hatred, envy, and grudging respect. The man had outplayed him completely, transforming from an insignificant spouse into the architect of Bryant's downfall, both literally and figuratively. Bryant closed the browser and pulled out his phone, opening his personal email account. 5 years of disciplined restraint dissolved as he found himself typing a familiar address. virv7to8@gmail.com. Do you ever regret it, V? 5 years today. We could have had everything. His finger hovered over the send button. Contact with Vanessa violated the terms of his settlement with Meridian, a foolish risk that could jeopardize the final payment due next month. With effort, Bryant deleted the draft and returned the phone to his pocket. That evening, as he sat through dinner with Claudia and the Phillips group, Bryant maintained his carefully constructed persona, insightful, measured, experienced. He laughed at the appropriate moments, offered strategic observations when expected, and played his role flawlessly. But as he sipped his scotch, he found himself calculating once again. Partnership at Finch and Weatherby would mean increased income, greater industry influence, potential board positions at smaller firms. From there, a strategic lateral move to a larger financial institution might be possible in 2 years. By 55, he could potentially reach C-suite level again, albeit at a smaller firm than Meridian. It was not the future he had planned, but Bryant Donovan had always been a strategist. Sometimes the game required recalibration after an unexpected defeat. What he would not acknowledge, even to himself, was the hollow center of these revised ambitions. The knowledge that he was now playing a smaller game on a smaller board, forever in the shadow of what might have been. The creative director, the Chicago wind whipped mercilessly across Michigan Avenue as Vanessa Reeves. Now simply Vanessa Reeves again after briefly attempting her maiden name. Hurry toward the Crescent marketing offices. At 41, she still turned heads with her confident stride and impeccable style, though fine lines had begun to appear around her eyes despite her rigorous skincare regimen. "Morning, Gia," she called to her assistant as she swept through the creative department, coffee in one hand, portfolio in the other. "The Lakeside Brewery's presentation is at 11. Confirmed, and Mark sent over the revised copy for your review." Gia replied, falling into step beside her. "Also, Howard wants 10 minutes before the client arrives." Vanessa nodded, mentally adjusting her morning schedule. As creative director at Crescent, she managed a team of 14 designers and copywriters overseeing campaigns for regional clients across the Midwest. The position lacked the prestige and compensation of her former role at Meridian Global, but it offered something more valuable: stability without scrutiny. Her office reflected her current aesthetic: clean, modern, with splashes of bold color. No personal photographs adorned her desk or walls. Only framed advertisements from successful campaigns and industry awards Crescent had won under her direction. Howard Brinton, Crescent's managing partner, appeared in her doorway minutes later. At 62, Howard had built the agency from scratch, creating a respected boutique firm that prioritized creativity over corporate politics. "Lakeside presentation ready to go?" he asked without preamble. "Just reviewing Mark's final copy changes." Vanessa confirmed. "We re-solid." Howard nodded, then closed her office door. An unusual move that immediately put Vanessa on alert. In 5 years at Crescent, she had carefully cultivated a professional relationship with Howard based on transparency and results, with clear boundaries that kept her personal history firmly in the past. "Something on your mind?" she prompted when he did not immediately speak. "Just heard from Polaris Group," Howard said, referring to one of Chicago's largest advertising conglomerates. "They were interested in acquiring us. Preliminary talks, very hush-hush for now." Vanessa absorbed this information, immediately calculating its implications. "And you reconsidering it? At my age?" "Absolutely. But it affects you more than anyone else on the team." The unspoken question hung between them. If Crescent merged with Polaris, Vanessa's carefully constructed professional bubble would burst. The corporate world was smaller than outsiders realized, especially at the executive level, especially in marketing circles. "Because of my history at Meridian," she stated rather than asked. Howard nodded. "You've never discussed it, and I've respected that. Your work at Crescent has been exemplary. But if we move forward with Polaris, my background will come under scrutiny." Vanessa finished for him. "Their CEO sits on 3 boards with Constance Solbright," Howard confirmed. The connection would inevitably surface. Vanessa maintained her composed expression through years of practice. "I appreciate the heads up. When do you need my decision?" "Take a week," Howard replied, standing. "For what it's worth, I'd fight to keep you in place regardless. You've more than proven yourself here." After he left, Vanessa turned to her window, looking out at the Chicago skyline without really seeing it. 5 years of careful rebuilding threatened by corporate networking. The very system she had once navigated so skillfully with Bryant. She had not allowed herself to think of him directly in years, referring to that period of bleakly as "my time at Meridian," when forced to acknowledge it at all. The settlement from Meridian had been enough to restart her life in Chicago. But the non-disclosure agreement meant she could never explain the real circumstances of her departure. The official story, a personal decision to explore new opportunities, fooled no one in the industry, but the absence of public scandal had allowed her to secure the position at Crescent. Howard had taken a calculated risk hiring her, recognizing her talent while tacitly agreeing never to discuss her past. Vanessa opened her laptop and quickly searched Meridian Global Leadership. The top news story announced Constance Albright's retirement and succession plan. Vanessa scanned the article, noting that Diana Kerrigan, her replacement, had been part of the board committee that had terminated her employment. Almost involuntarily, her fingers typed another search: Nolan Reeves Architect. The results were immediate and impressive: features in Architectural Digest, profiles in business magazines, awards for sustainable design. The man who had once been her husband had transformed himself completely in the aftermath of their marriage. A photograph showed him at a charity gala with a striking woman with short dark hair, identified as Diane Hartford, executive director of the Metropolitan Arts Council. They stood close, comfortable with each other in a way that suggested an established relationship. Vanessa closed the browser, a complex emotion settling in her chest. Not jealousy exactly, but something adjacent. Perhaps regret for the simplicity of what she had discarded, or recognition of the parallel lives that continued without her involvement. The intercom buzzed. Lakeside representatives are in the lobby. G.O. announced. I'll be right there. Vanessa replied, smoothing her skirt and refocusing her thoughts. That evening, alone in her downtown apartment, Vanessa considered her options. The sleek one-bedroom with its minimalist furnishings and panoramic view had always seemed an adequate replacement for the suburban home she shared with Nolan, smaller but more sophisticated, reflective of her independent status. She poured a glass of wine and opened her personal laptop, navigating to a password-protected folder labeled Archive. Inside were documents she rarely accessed. The divorce papers, the Meridian settlement agreement, the letter from her attorney advising her to accept Nolan's terms. A subfolder contained the only photographs she had kept from her previous life, not of Bryant, but of her 12 years with Nolan. Their wedding day. The house they had renovated together. Holidays with friends who had inevitably sided with him after the divorce. As she scrolled through these digital artifacts, Vanessa confronted the truth she had avoided for 5 years. Her relationship with Bryant had been built on mutual ambition rather than genuine connection, a strategic alliance masquerading as passion. When it collapsed, she had lost not only her marriage but her entire social framework. Her phone chained with an email notification. A headhunter inquiring about her interest in a senior creative director position in San Francisco. Higher profile, better compensation, farther from the Midwest corporate networks that might connect to her past. Another fresh start, another city, another reinvention. Vanessa closed the archive folder without replying to the email. 5 years of running from her history had brought her to this moment of decision. Continue distancing herself from the past, or finally confront it? After a long moment, she opened her contacts and found a number she had kept but never used. Her finger hovered over it momentarily before she pressed call. Teresa Morales speaking, answered the familiar voice of Perry's wife, the therapist Vanessa had once considered a friend. Teresa, it's Vanessa Reeves, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. I know this is unexpected, but I'm in Chicago and I'm wondering if you have any openings for new clients. The silence on the other end stretched for several seconds before Teresa responded professionally. I do have availability. May I ask what brings you to reach out now? It's been 5 years, Vanessa said simply. I think it's time I stopped pretending those years never happened. After arranging an initial, Vanessa returned to the window, looking out at the city lights. For the first time in 5 years, she allowed herself to fully remember the night at the Meridian Gala. The casual cruelty of introducing Nolan as her roommate, the devastating efficiency of his retaliation, the systematic dismantling of the life she had chosen. She had lost everything, but the loss had forced her to build something authentic from the ruins. Not the success she had envisioned with Bryant, but something earned through genuine effort rather than strategic alliances. Tomorrow she would give Howard her decision about the Polaris acquisition. She would consider the San Francisco offer. She would attend her first therapy session with Teresa. Tonight, however, Vanessa simply acknowledged the truth. 5 years ago, she had gambled everything on the wrong partner, underestimating the architect of her life because he did not fit her vision of success. It had been the most expensive mistake of her life, and perhaps the most valuable lesson. Full circle, the osteria Luca hummed with quiet conversation and the soft clink of fine glassware as Nolan sipped his wine, waiting for Diane to arrive. Their favorite table, tucked into a corner alcove with a view of both the restaurant and the street outside, offered the perfect balance of intimacy and observation. At the bar, a television silently displayed financial news, including a brief segment about Constance Albright's retirement from Meridian Global. Nolan watched without reaction, having already sent Constance a congratulatory message that morning. Their professional relationship had blossomed into mutual respect over the years, with Reeves and Morales handling 3 major projects for Meridian during her tenure. His phone buzzed with a text from Diane, 5 minutes away. Board meeting ran even longer than expected as Nolan waited. He found himself reflecting on his conversation with Perry earlier. 5 years of monitoring Vanessa and Bryant from a distance, a habit that had outlived its purpose. The quarterly updates from Leo had become a ritual without meaning, maintaining vigilance against threats that no longer existed. Mr. Reeves. Nolan looked up to find a striking woman in her early 30s standing beside his table, professionally dressed, but visibly nervous. Yes, he replied, not recognizing her. I'm Kira Donovan, she said, the familiar surname immediately capturing his full attention. Brian Donovan's daughter. I was hoping I might have a word with you. Nolan carefully set down his wine glass, studying the young woman more closely. The resemblance was there. The same determined jaw. The same direct gaze. Though her manner lacked Bryant's calculated charm. Please sit down, he invited, gesturing to the chair across from him. Though I admit I'm surprised by this visit. Kira settled into the seat. Her posture perfect, but tense. I've been working up the courage to approach you for months, she admitted. I'm in the city for a job interview. And when I recognized you from your website photos. How can I help you, Mr. Donovan? Nolan asked neutrally. I want to apologize, she said directly, for what my father did to you and your firm 5 years ago. The attacks on your business, the attempts to damage your reputation, all of it. Nolan maintained his composed expression despite his surprise. That's unexpected. May I ask why you feel responsible for your father's actions? I do not feel responsible, Kira clarified. But I do feel someone in our family should acknowledge the harm he caused. My father never will. She hesitated, then continued. After his divorce from my mother when I was 16, we were estranged for years. I did not understand what kind of man he was until I entered the corporate world myself and heard the whispers about his history at various companies. When the Meridian situation happened, he told our family it was a conspiracy against him. And you did not believe that? Nolan surmised. Not after I started putting the pieces together, Kira confirmed. The pattern was too consistent across too many situations. Nolan studied her carefully. Does your father know you re-speaking with me? No, she said firmly. We've re-established limited contact in recent years, but he has no idea I've researched his past or that I'm aware of what really happened at Meridian. Nolan considered this unexpected development. I appreciate your candor, Ms. Donovan, but I'm curious why this matters to you now. 5 years later, Kira's expression grew more serious. Because I'm interviewing at Meridian Global tomorrow and I need to know if that would cause problems for you. Your firm still does significant work with them. You re-interviewing at Meridian? Nolan repeated, genuinely surprised. Under your father's name. I've considered changing it, she admitted. But ultimately, I decided I should not have to hide from his mistakes. I want to succeed or fail on my own merits. Before Nolan could respond, he spotted Diane entering the restaurant. She noticed him immediately, her expression curious as she observed his unexpected companion. My partner will be joining us momentarily, Nolan explained to Kira. But to answer your question, no, your re-employment at Meridian would not cause any problems for me or my firm. Your father and I have long since gone our separate ways. Relief washed over Kira's features. Thank you. That means more than you know. As Diane approached the table, Nolan made quick introductions. Diane, this is Kira Donovan, who's interviewing at Meridian tomorrow. Kira, my partner, Diane Hartford. If Diane recognized the significance of the surname, she did not show it. Lovely to meet you, Kira. Are you joining us for dinner? No, thank you. I've taken enough of Mr. Reeves' time. Kira stood, extending her hand to Nolan. I appreciate your understanding. As they shook hands, Nolan made a spontaneous decision. My firm regularly offers architectural tours to Meridian's new executives. If you get the position, perhaps you join the next one. Kira's smile was genuine. I'd like that. After she departed, Diane slid into her seat, arching an eyebrow. Donovan. As in Brian's daughter, Nolan confirmed. Completely unexpected. And yet you invited her to one of your architectural tours. Diane observed. Nolan smiled slightly. She's not her father. And perhaps it's time to close the chapter completely. Diane reached across the table to take his hand. Speaking of closing chapters and opening new ones, she began, a hint of nervousness in her usually confident demeanor. I've been thinking about your proposal. 3 months earlier, Nolan had asked Diane to marry him. A quiet, private proposal on the rooftop garden of their favorite museum. She had asked for time to consider, mindful of both their previous marriages and the careful pace of their relationship. And Nolan prompted gently, and I think it's time for both of us to build something new. She replied, squeezing his hand. So my answer is yes. Later that evening, as they walked back to Nolan's loft, he found himself reflecting on the day's unexpected convergences. 5 years to the day since everything had changed. Constance retiring. Brian's daughter seeking absolute information for sins she had not committed. Diane accepting his proposal. In his pocket, his phone buzzed with an email notification from Leo. Likely the quarterly update he'd grown accustomed to receiving. For a moment, Nolan considered checking it immediately, maintaining the vigilance that had become habitual. Instead, he silenced the phone and focused on the woman beside him, discussing plans for their future together. The past had shaped him, but it no longer defined him. The architect had completed his masterwork. Not just the buildings that would stand as his professional legacy, but the life he had carefully reconstructed from the ruins of betrayal. Tomorrow, he would email Leo and end the quarterly updates. He would contact his attorney about removing the final monitoring protocols he de-established 5 years ago. He would begin sketching ideas for the Westlake Cultural Center, his most ambitious project yet, but tonight, walking hand in hand with Diane under the city lights, Nolan Reeves simply embraced the present. The culmination of a blueprint that had transformed destruction into creation, resentment into resilience, and ultimately revenge into renewal.